This is workshop 5 in a series of 10 workshops on researching your family history in Ireland. And this workshop will feature the 1901 and 1911 census. I did say in an earlier workshop that there were three main areas of research, and one was the land surveys of the 19th century, one was births, marriages and deaths, and the other is these two censuses. I also said that if you were researching from outside of Ireland, you would probably use the Griffiths valuation, which we covered in workshop 4, but that if you're starting in Ireland, you really want to start with the censuses. So that's what we're doing today. The censuses, again, as I mentioned, for the 19th century were all destroyed either in the Four Courts fire or deliberately pulped during the First World War. So these are the only two we have, but they're extremely important, and especially if you're researching from Ireland, you want to use your oral history to be able to find your people in these two censuses. It's in 1911 or 1901. Clearly that means talking to older members of the family. Now, if you're my age, which is the wrong side of 40, then you will probably be finding your grandparents in these censuses. My grandparents were born in the 1880s, 1890s, so therefore I will see them there, and I will also find that some of them or their siblings will be children, and that means that if I never knew it before, and I didn't when I started to do this research, I will very suddenly find my great-grandparents, because they will be living with their great-grandparents. So immediately you're pushed back another generation, and those great-grandparents could be 70 or maybe even 80 in 1901, so all of a sudden you're back to 1830 or 1820. So these censuses are very important, they're very central to the whole thing. One thing I should emphasise yet again is that if you're researching in Ireland, you really need to have a good idea of where your people came from. I know that a lot of people who've gone to America don't really know where their ancestors came from. They just know it's Ireland or maybe County Tyrone or something like that. It's extremely hard if you don't know at least the parish and preferably the townland. And again, I should emphasise that a townland is not a town. It's the whole of Ireland, unlike England for example, is divided into small patches of rural countryside, and each of these has a townland name. Like for example, the one we're in now is Monrea, townland of Monrea. You need to have an idea of what that townland is so that you can find your people in 1901 and 1911, and that's what I'm going to do now. If we have a look at the 1901 and 1911 census, the starting point for finding any of these resources online is always Google. You used to have to remember complicated addresses, web addresses, and then we used favourites for a long time. We don't even need favourites now. Everything really starts with Google. So you just summon up Google first of all, and you type into Google 190 or 1911, it doesn't matter, census, the 1911 census, click onto the 1911 census. Now, you could end up like I have done here and find all sorts of websites that contain the 1911 census, many of them English, but we want to find the Irish census, and the Irish census is in the National Archives. So it's this one down here, the National Archives of Ireland. There it is there. Actually, I've still got, that's not it. The National Archives of Ireland we need to find, so let's try again. 1901 census. And that's, if you don't find it satisfactorily the first time, use Google properly, put in Ireland, 1901 census Ireland. And there it is, at last. Clicking on to the National Census of Ireland then. We want to search the census, so we click here. And both the 1901 and 1911 census are in the same place. 1901, 1911. There they are there. Now, most of the work that we'll be doing in these workshops is online. Most of the research is online. That's in a way why we're doing the workshops, because you can do so much of it online. That means you will be using various databases, and in each and every one of these databases I'll say the same thing. You have all sorts of boxes to fill in here. Surname, forename, county, townland or street, DE, age, sex in this particular one. I'll say the same thing over and over. Less is more. The less you put into this, the less likely you are to make a mistake and the more likely you are to find what you're looking for. Because some of these databases, the majority of them in fact, are spelling sensitive. So if I put my own name in here, Gray, I could put the name of my grandfather that I'm looking for, put William in there. I know that it's County Derry. Sometimes it says Londonderry and sometimes it says Derry. There it is there, Londonderry. I'll leave it at that, because if I knew the townland, I might not know the spelling of it. DED, I certainly don't know what that is at this stage. It is actually just a larger area of land, the divisional electoral district. And it simply is the area that elects an MP. And you will need to know it at some point, but at the minute I don't know it. So if I just search for William Gray in the 1911 census, go down to search, and here we have a choice of William Grays. There's actually 11 of them here. I want to fit them all onto one page, so I'm going to click the 50. There it is there. Now I need to have some idea of what age that William Gray is. And I know in fact that he came from Englishtown, so I would need to go through them perhaps. I can rearrange them by age there, for example. There they are by age now, starting with a 3-year-old at the top and going down to a 68-year-old here in Golladuff. I can look through these places. I know that it's not in Keady and I know it's not in Derry City. William John Gray, now that's a very familiar name, and he is in Garva. So I could click William John Gray in Garva, and lo and behold, who pops up but my grandfather, William John Gray, aged only 23, and my grandmother, Ginny Gray, she's written there. Ginny McCants, her name was originally. And there is my Aunt Sadie, we called her. So found them in the 1911 census quite easily. My dear Aunt Sadie, who actually lived to be 100. Doesn't give her age there, not quite sure why. On all of these, there is a show all information. Never forget to click that. If I click here on show all information, more information appears over to the right hand side. He was a stonemason. He could read and write. Not surprising for someone aged 23 in 1911, but I wonder if his father could read and write. Possibly not. There he is, he's married. And in the 1911 census, but not in the 1901 census, there is 2 crucial pieces of information way over here on the left hand side, and I keep pulling it over. It's got how long he was married, 3 years married. That means he was married in 1908. At a later date, I can now go and look for his marriage in 1908 to someone called Jeannie. That could pose difficulties because I doubt if Jeannie is her real name. But it's something we will look at in a future session of the workshops. It also shows you, unique to 1911, how many children had been born and how many were still living. And of course, when you have larger families, you very often find 8 children born perhaps, and only 5 of them still living. Sadly, these were days when many children were born dead or died very young. So there I have found my grandfather and my aunt. But he is living alone because he's 23. He has moved out of the house. So let me go back a bit. Remember, there was another William Gray here from Englishtown, and I had done some research and knew that Englishtown is a townland near McCoston, which is where I knew from asking older aunts and uncles where they came from, that he did come from near McCoston. So if I click on this one, there's William Gray, aged 49 or so he says, and his wife is aged 60, Anna Gray. Well, this is my great-grandparents. Mary Alice Boyd Gray is my grandfather's sister, still living at home, aged 26. And of course you will notice what was very important for me is there's that name Boyd, included in a woman's name this time. That must have some connection with my own name, and this was why I started doing genealogy in the first place, was to find out where the Boyd came from. There's another very significant name there, Sarah Matilda, and that G I later discovered is Galloway. Sarah Matilda Galloway Gray, what a strange name for my great aunt. Many people of my roots, Scotch-Irish roots, would like to know where they came from in Scotland. Very few of us, very few of us ever find out, but surely that must be a clue that she was called Sarah Matilda Galloway Gray. Did they come from Galloway in southwestern Scotland? Remember, clicking on here gives you extra information, so hopefully I will now find how long my great-grandparents were married. Over to the right-hand side, 29 years. So I can subtract 29 from 1911. Well, I could perhaps if I was able to do it quick enough. 1882 is that? So 1882 is when I should be looking for their marriage. And I know that if I find that marriage of this couple here, I will get her maiden name, and I will also get their parents, which will be my great-great-grandparents. So can you see how useful the 1901 and 1911 censuses are? Especially 1911. 1901 will have one advantage, of course, and that is that it will take you back 10 years more, which means that you're likely to get even older people in it because they won't have passed away in those years between 1901 and 1911. Interestingly here, it says 4 children born and 3 living. Well, as I did my research a little bit more, I found that in fact there was 5 children born and 4 living, and I have no explanation for why they left one out. One other point I should stress is that let's have a look at their ages. She was 11 years older than him. Her name was actually Annie Brewster. Annie Brewster said that she was 60 and he was 49. Let's have a look at the 1901 census and see if we can find these people in 1901. So I'm going to go back here, back again, keep going backwards until I get to William Gray in 1911. Switch it over to 1901. See if I can find them. Click search. Remember, less is more. Don't put any more than you have to. Look for them. There they are again. In English Town, in the DED of Somerset. Supposing I wanted to find some more of my family, because initially you're looking for your grandparents, your great-grandparents and great-great-grandparents, but eventually you'll want to find their brothers and sisters. They'll probably be living nearby, but perhaps not in the same townland because it's a very small area. But I now know that they lived in the DED of Somerset, so I can search Somerset for other Greys at a later point. Looking at William Gray then, 1901, do you remember what age he said he was? He was 49 in 1911 and she was 60. Let's have a look at him. Oh my goodness me, he's 37 now and she's 47. So she has aged 13 years in 10 years. Now this was very common actually. Do not accept anything that anybody tells you in any of these censuses as definitively correct, because just as now, in those days people tend to tell little stories about their ages until 1909, when old age pensions were introduced and you had to be 70 in order to get the old age pension, so suddenly there was an incentive to remember exactly what age you were. That's why she ages 13 years in 10 years, and this is extremely common. You can see, here she is again, here they are, William Gray and Annie Brewster. There's Mary Alice Boyd Gray, the Boyd is missing this time, and there's my grandfather. Notice how he's 13 here and he was 23 in the 1911 census. At that age you don't have much incentive to tell lies, unless of course you got married early or something like that, or perhaps you were 20 years older than your wife and you might wish to not be entirely truthful about your age. So beware of the information in here. Know what information is available. If I look on the show all information again for this family, my great-grandfather and his great-grandmother, my great-grandmother, click on the show all information and go over to the right-hand side, and this time there is no information on how long they were married or how many children they had. It just was not asked in the 1901 census, so you won't find it. So you want to hope that the people who are important to you did live until 1911, because then you will find that crucial bit of information of how long they were married, and you will be able to look for their marriage on one of the other online databases, which I will be showing you in workshop 8, I think it is. Thank you.